Disturbing news coming out of Nevada after the Bundy standoff. Some of the militias that were standing with Bundy against the BLM have apparently expanded their presence and are scaring the small town of Bunkerville. So wary is the town of Bunkerville to these armed militiamen that their representative, Stephen Horsford, has sent a letter to the sheriff of Clark County named Doug Gillespie. This letter said recent events in Clark County have, quote, caused many of my constituents to fear for their safety. Makes sense. There's a group of heavily armed men walking around. It goes on to say, of course, that my constituents have expressed concern that members of these armed militia groups have, 1, set up checkpoints where residents are required to prove that they live in the area before being allowed to pass. 2, have established a persistent presence along federal highways and state and country roads, and 3, have established an armed presence in or around community areas, including local churches, schools, and other community locations. Residents have expressed their desire to see these groups leave their community, and finally, this letter asks Gillespie to investigate the reports of the militia's actions and work with local leaders. Now, this to me is a little bit disturbing. How these militias going from being in the Bundy Ranch to essentially occupying churches, roads, and setting up checkpoints, asking for people's papers to see if they live there. But I want to get your guys' opinion of this.
I have no idea. I mean, okay, I know they have guns and they're heavily armed and stuff. They're not just kind of carrying, .22 pistols. They have assault rifles and everything here. But I have no idea why the police don't just come down and say, no, you are not the police in this state. We are. I can understand why the Bureau of Land Management doesn't necessarily want to engage with them. But why the police, I imagine that in this small local town, the police probably aren't strong enough to deal with these. I don't want to call them kind of local terrorists, but they are, as you just kind of described in the letter, they are terrorizing the local populace and asking for papers and seeing whether you're a resident there. And it's reminiscent of kind of 1930s, 40s Germany. Papers, please. Are you a resident? It's just horrific, and I don't know why. I don't know why they feel that they are entitled to do this. They're not. You're not the cops. You shouldn't be allowed to do this. It just seems amazing to me that they've been allowed to get away with this. I just can't believe that it's gotten to this stage now where they're running their own armed militia.
First of all, setting up checkpoints to prevent the federal government from abusing personal liberty seems very weird and ironically stupid. I don't understand what the thought process is behind this and how nobody's like, hey, wait a minute. This sounds like an awful idea. I can understand if you're afraid that the federal government will seek revenge on Bundy and you want to, post up around him. That actually makes, logical sense. But I don't get how you're going to just post up on random highways, or not random highways, but highways that don't directly lead to the Bundy Ranch, and you're going to post up there to check everybody to see if they're, secretly infiltrating. I got news for you. The government's going to come in the black helicopters. They're not going to, disguise themselves and sneak in.
Well, the thing is as well that these guys, I imagine they're overcompensating. I reckon the vast majority of these militiamen all have tiny cocks, and they're just, oh, we're so tough. We're standing up to the government. We've got our guns. We're in control here. If the government wanted to, if the FBI wanted to or they sent in the army and stuff to just sort these guys out. And when I say sort these guys out, I mean move them along and disperse them. Not in any violent way, but just say, look, guys, you're going to disband here, or otherwise we're really going to start kicking things off because you're not allowed to start threatening other American citizens. They would piss their pants and run away in terror as soon as the tanks started rolling across. They just want to act macho, and they think they're all hardcore and cool, and they're just pathetic. And I think that's really the only reason that they're doing this now. Because the whole Clive and Bundy situation is It's kind of past now. The media aren't talking about it this much, and really, it's just these guys stroking their own egos because they've got nothing else better to do with their lives.
Right. You know, they don't have any authority to be asking for people's identification anyway. So it's pretty ridiculous. And for somebody driving through, what happens if you tell them to fuck off and drive away? Are they going to start shooting you if you drive to their checkpoint?
Well,
what happens if you're a brown or a black person? This is fucked up.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, these guys are supporting Clive Bundy, who is now kind of a noted racist. He has racist views and opinions. So these guys are defending a known racist. So I was just about to say, if a black person kind of is driving past and say, "Where's your papers? Are you a local resident in this state?" And they go, "You know, fuck off. I don't want to give you my papers. I don't have to. You have no right to ask me." Do you not think they're going to point a gun in his face and they look, listen, boy, we're going to, you know, we want to see your papers? Of course they are. This is just going to end up horrifically unless. I mean, hopefully, if the mainstream media just ignores them and not that much else happens, and hopefully they will just fade away to obscurity, and they'll have to go back to their kind of, I assume, their wives or whatever. I imagine most of these guys are probably single, lonely men, but and hopefully they will just dissipate over the next couple of weeks or so. But for the time being, I do feel sorry for the residents there who are being terrorized by this militia group.
And another point to add on to that, you know, if somebody goes through their checkpoint and they've also got guns, now you've got a shootout. That's fucked up. And so, look, what it seems to me like is that they've set up their own little police state out there, which is pretty ironic, to be honest. We're against the police state. We're going to set up our own police state. Papers, please. Then what the fuck are you doing? Like, what's going on here? That's not freedom.
That's an excellent point, Jeff. I may or may not be concussed right now, so if I don't make any sense, you guys let me know. But like, what papers are they checking for? Because supposedly
they're checking identification to see if they live there in the area.
But this is supposedly a group of people that doesn't recognize the United States government, so they're checking for government papers to determine the validity of whether or not these people should be there. It's asinine, man.
I think the irony is sort of lost on them, in a way. And I want to go to one of the residents, Paula Wicken. Now, she talked to somebody on Easter Sunday and how armed militia members were greeting her neighbors on their way to church. And she said, quote, "I know of a few people that did not even enter for fear and disgust of having their church basically held captive. All for one man that doesn't want to pay his fees that are due to the government." So some people in this town don't even want the militias there. What are they doing?
There is just no reason for them to be. I could understand when they felt that Clive Bundy was being threatened by the Bureau of Land Management and stuff, and they wanted to, you know, protect that land that they thought was Clive Bundy's, even though it wasn't. I could slightly understand their mindset now, but as you said, like, there's no point for them being there. And to Jordan's point as well, then checking papers of a government they don't want to recognise. It's just, and how many people? I mean, I don't know what it's really like in America, but over here in the UK, okay, you have your driving license with you, but you're not carrying around your passport or the deed to your house showing that you're a local resident and stuff. You don't carry around that sort of stuff when you're travelling around the country. It's just ludicrous. These guys are absolute morons. They're kind of big macho morons who just are pathetic, and they just shouldn't be there.
Welcome, Dan.
Hello.
So I think I'm wondering if you're going to defend the militias a little bit, because you did say something last time we were talking about Bundy, about how the militia members were trying to stand up for, you know, freedom and stuff like that. So, like, let's get their side a little bit.
Well, they're trying to educate the locals about the NDAA and the Patriot Act, and a lot of them are not really even there for Clive and Bundy. I know a couple of people in that area that are participating in the protests, some with arms, some without, but mostly that's what's going around, and they're handing out pamphlets and so forth. But
so they're trying to warn people about the police state by stopping people at armed checkpoints and checking them for papers? Give me a break.
I didn't hear anything about the armed checkpoint. I just talked at the Bundy Ranch itself, and the people that are showing up. But you do realize that there's the extended Burning Man by, I think it's like 10 more fucking days or something, and they called it Bundy Fest. But there's hippies and shit driving in and out that area just checking out what the hell's going on. I didn't.
Look, I just gotta say, if they're there to sit there and defend Bundy, then by all means, go to the ranch and defend the ranch. There's no reason this militia needs to go and take over the town. And look, we don't even know what militia is there. There's probably several different groups that are there. I know there was the Oath Keepers, and there's sort of an interesting story on the Oath Keepers. Apparently, some of those militiamen are not getting along with Bundy's security. Basically, the Oath Keepers have been kicked out from the Bundy Ranch, supposedly, because they left, citing a quote-unquote government source, that Eric Holder was planning on drone striking them.
I have to point out that Oath Keepers is not a militia group. They're just an organization of law enforcement people, active and inactive, that just reaffirm their oath, and they add like 10 illegal orders that they won't find. They're not actually a militia. It would be members of Oath Keepers that went down to the Bundy Ranch, not like a militia branch of them. These militia guys, like I'm all for them defending the Bundy Ranch. Like even if Bundy like is at the minimum super stupid and racially insensitive, but probably more likely a big time racist, I'm all in favor of them defending that if that's what they want to do. But you're setting up, when you start putting checkpoints on roads that aren't directly leading to Bundy, you're setting up a confrontation from the federal government that the federal government doesn't really want to get into. Nobody wants to see another Waco here. So like, it's this weird instance where if you break the law in a certain way, then you might get away with it, and it's kind of a bad precedent. Like I would like them to like tone it down, not be checking randoms, and maybe just protect the Bundy Ranch, if that's what they want to do.